This is going to sound a little bit cynical, but one of the things we learn from being entangled in a narcissistic relationship is we learn to trust nobody. I told you that. That's a little bit cynical, but it's just true. DNA just doesn't lie. The fact of the matter is there is no person on the planet who can be trusted 100% of the time, always, every time, never an exception. Now, sometimes we go too far to one side where we begin to become too trusting of other people. There's something about human nature that we expect everybody to have a worldview that is similar rather to ours. That's a form of mirroring, theory of mind. We assume that because we think this way, other people think this way. So if you are an honest person, that if you are a trustworthy person, you just kind of assume that, well, that's the way people are. We're honest and trustworthy, and so we think others are honest and trustworthy, and so we trust them. Then we get entangled in a narcissistic relationship, and we find that the love bombing was all fake. But the guy was so good at it. I mean, he or she was just really good at drawing us in, sucking us in. But now, after we're entangled in this, we find out we trusted this person and we should not have. But by the time we get to the final discard, where they have effectively thrown us away, just totally humiliated us. And by the way, the root word for humiliate comes from the same I think it's Latin word for humus, which is dirt. So when somebody humiliates you, they are treating you like dirt. That's not that's not the impression we got during the love bombing. They didn't humiliate us then, but as the relationship progressed on, whether it was a friendship or love interest, whatever, the other person began to humiliate us on purpose by design. And what we decided to do was, maybe we should trust nobody. Now, we go too far with this, right? But sometimes we can go not far enough. We can be too trusting. And I got to tell you, my problem throughout my life is I have always been too trusting. I just assume everybody else is the good guy. You remember those old westerns? Good guys, white hats, bad guys, black hats. I thought virtually everybody wore a white hat, and if they didn't, it was very obvious. They wore black hats. You know, it was kind of obvious who the bad guys were. But it turns out rather that nobody wears a white hat, nobody wears a black hat, everybody wears a gray hat in their different shades. So some people are more trusting than others, and those we call psychopaths, narcissists, dark triad. Those people have a really dark shade of gray hat, but they wear white hats just to fool us, and we fall for it because, well, we're naive and gullible. Number two, the other thing we learn from being entangled with a narcissist, at least the thing that I learned, and I'm assuming others learned the same thing, is that, quite frankly, I'm just too gullible. You know, I just believe everybody. There's something within me that I just want to believe people are good. I want to believe they're decent. I want to believe I can trust them. I want to believe if they say something that they mean what they say and they're going to follow through. That's not reality, but apparently I live in a world that is not real. Very, how shall I say this? It's very real that I live in an unreal world, if that makes sense. So I just assume that everybody's going to keep their word and do what they say they will do. But I got to tell you, here I am, just a young man pushing 70 years old. I'm starting to figure this thing out now. I'm starting to learn that you can't just trust everybody because, well, you know, because you just should. That's called gullibility. And yeah, I got to admit that I have learned that I am just too gullible. Now, my response to that typically is to try to avoid people. Psychologists say that's not a good idea. Psychiatrists, say maybe, you need to hang around people because you need that social interaction. And I agree, but also what I don't need is to be taken advantage of, and people seem to have a sixth sense where they pick up on my gullibility. Do you find the same thing with you? People seem to pick up on that gullibility trait, that naive trait, that you are an easy target. You're low-hanging fruit. You're the wounded gazelle. They can pounce on you, and you don't even know it. You see the lion coming out of the bush, and you think, oh, cool, there's another gazelle. If you're gullible, if you're naive, that actually, maybe not literally, but that actually is the way that you think. Number three is one thing I learned was I'm just too nice. I like to be nice. What's wrong with being nice? I like to be nice. I like to be courteous. I like to let people out in traffic. I like to do kind things for people if somebody needs help. I like to help them. The problem with that is narcissists pick up on that very quickly. Overt narcissist, covert narcissist, they pick up on that very quickly. And what a covert narcissist will do is they will take advantage of that, and they will be nice to you, so you will be nice to them. And that's pretty much where it ends. They just drawing you in. They will bait you with, again, love bombing, and they pull you into their web, their dark web, and before you know it, they're not nice anymore. So I found that the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you, is kind of extreme if you take it to the extreme. Because what we're talking about with the golden rule is we're talking about empathy, that ability to understand effective empathy, I should say, that ability to understand what others are going through. Walk a mile in my shoes, another way people express it. But, you're trying to walk in their shoes, and you think you're walking in their shoes, but this is a narcissist. Those aren't his shoes. He or she is wearing different shoes. They're just pretending to be somebody that they are not, but we buy into that fake personality, that fake persona. So we're walking a mile in the shoes of this poor downtrodden individual who's not a poor downtrodden individual. It's a scammer. It's a grifter. It's somebody who takes advantage of other people. And some of these guys are really good at it. I was watching a documentary on, I think it was Australia 60 Minutes, about a guy who was a fraudster. Spent his whole life. He would find a woman who was a woman of resources, and he would marry her. And he would scam the woman out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then he'd go on to another woman and do the same thing until he was found out. And I guess he went through, 4, 5, 6 different marriages just scamming people. And the presenter raised the question, why do the authorities not step in and arrest this guy? I mean, it's obvious he's a fraudster. There's documentation. And the answer was, when she asked the authorities, is they said they just don't have the resources. I mean, if it's a bank transaction where somebody is embezzling millions of dollars, then they get involved. But this guy knows he can get away with it because the authorities aren't going to waste their time chasing him. Now, I would think if somebody embezzles $100,000 or more multiple times, millions of dollars over a few years, that the authorities would say, this guy needs to be taken down. But they didn't. They didn't even bother to investigate him. So the reason that I say that is sometimes we are too nice to other people, not recognizing we're dealing with not a nice person, but with a fraudster. Number 4 is one of the things that I've learned is that I am too fearful. Fearful? Well, really not fearful of the narcissist, but I am fearful of other people. I am fearful of what they say. If I'm not nice, when I should not be nice, other people will say, you're not being very nice. Well, I've got a good reason for not being nice. And I fear being rejected by these other people, so I go ahead and be nice when I should not be nice, and I get taken for advantage. And when that happens, what happens to these people who told me that I should be nice? Well, they just kind of disappear. They're just gone. They're out of the scene. Have you ever had that experience where somebody would encourage you to do something that you inherently knew was going to get you in trouble, but their argument was, that's not very kind of you, that's not very courteous of you, you ought to do something for this person, and you're thinking this person is a shyster, this is a fraudster, I don't want to be nice to this person. I've got caught in that trap more times than I can imagine. Told you I'm gullible. And inevitably, the person who talked me into being nice to the fraudster disappears. Go try to find him. Say, hey, do you know what happened? You know the outcome of this? You can't ask them because they're not there. So when I say that I'm too fearful of critics who press me. They're not doing it. You be nice to the guy. They're not doing it, but they're telling me that I should do it, and I'm fearful of them rejecting me. And who knows, they may talk about me and say, this guy is not nice. So what is the alternative? Well, the alternative is to be scammed. I think I'd rather be called not nice. See those two rectangles on the screen? If you want our conversation to continue, let's keep hanging out. All you got to do is click on one of those two rectangles, and we keep talking. If not, thanks for stopping by, and see y'all next time.